Good morning. I'm Bob Hancock, co-lay leader here at First and Summerfield United Methodist Church, along with Luke. God's sun is up on this pre-summer day. It's a glorious day to be alive.
Thank you, Bob. It is indeed a glorious day to be alive, and it is a glorious weekend to be graduating for those of us who are going through that process. Today, this morning, we have the privilege to come and to worship God, to take time out of our busy and distracted lives, to come to be before our Lord, to open our spirits to God. Let us take a moment now of silent meditation, bring ourselves fully into this space and into this time to be with our God. And now, if you would join me in the call to worship, you may stand as you are able. A man calls from another realm on another continent. We go, we wander, we seek with open hearts. We find a place of prayer outside the gate, on the margins. We sit, we speak and listen with women, a certain woman, an immigrant, unusual, uncommon, opens her heart. The world is changed. And now, as you are able, if you could remain standing for our first hymn, which Kimmy will lead us in, Down to the River to Pray.
As I went down to
You may be seated. And now, friends, if you would join me in our prayer of confession and assurance of pardon. O God, forgive our cluttered lives. We are too busy, too anxious, too distracted to have visions, to dream, to discern. Have mercy on our preoccupied souls. And now let us silently confess our sins to God. Hear this good news, beloveds. In the name of Jesus Christ, we are forgiven. Glory to God. Amen.
Lynn's now going to lead us in reading our scripture passage for this morning, which comes from the book of Acts, chapter 16, verses 9 to 15.
And a vision appeared to Paul in the night. A man of Macedonia was standing there, urging him and saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." And when Paul had seen the vision, immediately we sought to go on to Macedonia, concluding that God had called us to preach the gospel to them. So, setting sail from Troas, we made a direct voyage to Samothrace, and the following day to Neapolis, and from there to Philippi, which is a leading city of the district of Macedonia and a Roman colony. We remained in this city some days, and on the Sabbath day we went outside the gate to the riverside, where we supposed there was a place of prayer. And we sat down and spoke to the women who had come together. One who heard us was a woman named Lydia, from the city of Thyatira, a seller of purple goods who is a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart to pay attention to what was said by Paul. And after she was baptized, and her household as well, she urged us, saying, "If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay." And she prevailed upon us. The word of the Lord for the people of God.
Thanks be to God. Thank you, Lynn. Would you all pray with me? God, thank you for this day. Thank you for bringing your word to us in so many forms, through so many images, through so many experiences, through so many different kinds of people. We pray today that the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts would be acceptable to you, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. I just have to beam this morning because we've got the Grosh family and Ben's mom here with us in the flesh, which is so exciting. That's really exciting for graduation. It's a beautiful, beautiful weekend for a lot of our folks. Speaking of academic things, I suppose, I wanted to start off my sermon by telling you all that I live in a home that is full of nerds. We are all nerds, real nerds. My particular nerdiness is related to theology and high school level science and Octavia Butler novels. The other humans in my home are music nerds. My spouse makes sure that this is true. So he's taught my child these levels of music theory that make me immediately want to take a nap. He drills her on chords and intervals and scales. Is there anybody else in here who's like a music nerd, like on that level? Like you can like name the chords and the scales and all that. Laura, I seeing that maybe you are a little bit. So I don't understand what they're talking about. But this is the only reason, like overhearing this drilling is the only reason that I've ever heard of this thing called the Lydian mode. Anybody heard? Okay, Laura, yes, you are a nerd. Which has something to do with the Lydian scale. I don't know what it was or what it's about, but I often hear my spouse playing some notes on the piano, and my little 8-year-old will say, oh, that's a Dorian scale, or that's a Phrygian scale, or that's a Lydian scale, which I don't know if that's impressive, but I don't understand it, so I think she's a genius. I don't know, she's smarter than me about all this stuff. What I do know would be, because I looked it up, is that the Lydian mode was named after a place in ancient Greece. I wonder if you can guess what that place was. Any guesses? The Lydian mode. Does somebody say Lydia? Yeah, Lydia, yeah. Okay, so here's the connection to the Bible story, right? Did you catch who the starring character of our story is today? Lydia. Yep. This woman named Lydia. And can you guess where this woman was from? Yes. So the answer to all my trivia questions this morning are Lydia. So the story says she's from a city called Thyatira. And can you guess what region of modern-day Turkey Thyatira was in? Lydia. Love Lydia. I've been really enjoying Lydia this week. So I'll recap this story just really quick so that we can all have it fresh in our minds. So Paul is, off on his missionary journeys, and he has these travel companions, and they're kind of wandering around what is now Turkey. And Paul sees a vision of this Macedonian man asking him to come to Macedonia. And so Paul and his friends head over to Macedonia, or what's now Greece. They take a boat over to Greece, to this city called Philippi, where they, again, kind of like wander around aimlessly until the Sabbath, when they're going to go look for a place to pray. And for some reason, they go to the outskirts of the city, outside of the city gate, to this river, and they think that there's going to be prayer there. And there is indeed this group of women sitting around, which includes Lydia, and they all get to talking, and Lydia, here's what Paul and the friends are saying, and Lydia decides to have her whole household baptized, and then she invites Paul and his friends to stay over at her house. So this is what is known in my Bible as the conversion of Lydia. So there are a couple things that I'm really loving about this story this week. Here's one thing. Lydia is an immigrant. Do you ever think of her that way? I don't know if you've ever read this story before, but I hadn't really thought of her that way, but she's an immigrant. According to the categories of the ancient world, she's actually an Asian immigrant to Europe, right? What was Lydia is today in modern Turkey, which is in the continent of Asia. So Lydia was an Asian immigrant. And I just want to emphasize that this little known fact perhaps is that Lydia is considered the first European Christian. Lydia is the first European Christian. I think that's really interesting, that Lydia is the first Christian from Europe which has claimed Christianity as its kind of own native religion and spread Christianity, around the world, right in step with white supremacy and European culture and European judgments about other cultures. Europe, which today really struggles with so much xenophobia against immigrants, often using the religion of immigrants to stir up hatred. Europe, which imported white supremacy and xenophobia and European cultural Christian supremacy to this country where it lives and breathes fire and haunts our people. I just think it's so rich and just so consistent with the way that God functions in the world, that this first European Christian was an immigrant. The first European Christian was an immigrant. That's a thing. I found myself this week really getting lost in my imagination, thinking about Lydia and her life as an immigrant in Philippi. I wondered, how did she get to Philippi? Did her family immigrate generations ago? Or did she come by herself? Was she a victim of domestic violence? Did she take her kids and flee Thyatira and make a new life for herself and her children away from violence in Philippi? I wonder if her parents spoke Greek, or did she have to translate for them, for the doctor and the tax collector and the police? I wondered what pieces of Lydian culture she might still have in her life in Philippi. Was there a little Lydian community in Philippi with a little Lydian grocery store that sold the particular cooking equipment that you needed to make Lydian comfort foods? I wondered if she wore traditional Lydian clothing, or if she really tried to fit in with the Greek women around her. I wondered if she had an accent, and if she did, was it the kind of accent that people think sounds smart and interesting, or the kind of accent that made people stop listening? And I wondered, what things she had in her home that connected her to her family, like artwork or an old quilt, maybe an instrument or an oil that used to smell just like Thyatira. Those of us who come to a place from another place, we have these precious things that jog the sweet memories, that remind us that we belong somewhere on the days when we are made to feel like we don't belong in the place we are. We have, in my nerd home, we've started hanging up in our house some of the Chinese prints that I brought from my parents' house. They're from the National Palace Museum in Taipei, which was walking distance from the university where my parents met and where we always stay in Taiwan. There are these paintings of fish and trees and flowers and people in flowing gowns playing games and music. And they reminded my dad, these pictures, of home. My dad was a Chinese elder, an Asian immigrant, living in a place that did not respect him, that had no curiosity about his life or his culture, and he was just surrounded by American everything. But he kind of turned our home into this little Chinatown. He cooked his comfort foods every day. Our home smelled of Chinese everything. He hung those paintings all around the house. They reminded him, I think, that he does belong to a people, that he came from somewhere, that his experiences really matter in this world. And I think that's true of a lot of immigrant households. So I wonder what Lydia's home looked like, and I wonder what Lydia's home smelled like. Another thing that's interesting to me is that Lydia, this first European Christian, Lydia is from a place called Lydia, right? That's kind of strange. It's a little weird. Makes you wonder, like, is Lydia her real name? Because remember, Lydia is an Asian immigrant, so it kind of makes you wonder. Maybe this isn't her real name. Maybe this is like a nickname that people call her because that's what they see when they look at her. They see other, they see foreigner. Maybe it's just like an epithet like Chinaman or something like that. Lady from Lydia. Did Lydia have a name, from the Lydian language and the Lydian culture? That was hard for people to pronounce, and so it was just easier for people to call her something else. These are things we don't know. Lydia from Lydia. Lydia, whose name is the name of the place of her ancestors. So I was kind of pondering this and wondering, is this all just racism from the Greek culture that she was living in? But then I realized that I am named after the place of my ancestors. I had this realization, that's like me. My Chinese name is Su Xiang. So Su comes from the Chinese word for Missouri, which is where my mom was from, Missouli, Su. And Xiang is the name of the Xiang River in the Chinese province of Hunan, which is where my dad grew up. So Suxiang is a place name as well. I am named after the place of my ancestors. So I kind of wondered then, maybe Lydia goes by Lydia so that she and her children who will grow up surrounded by Greek culture will always know and be reminded of where they came from. You are of Lydia. You are Lydian. Lydia is also just a very unorthodox person. She's an Asian immigrant. She's a working woman. She has a career. She's a merchant who deals in purple cloth, which is very expensive textile and is really only bought by wealthy people. So Lydia had all these contacts with very powerful people as a woman in a very patriarchal society. Lydia was the head of her household, which was very unusual. She owned a home where, she sheltered Paul and Silas several times. She was able to make her own decisions about her household. She, not a male patriarch who usually would make all the decisions about the household, but Lydia was the one who decided that her whole household was going to be baptized. She was the one who decided who would stay in her home. This was all like super unusual, right? Lydia was a weirdo. She was a strange bird. And yet, Lydia belongs in Christian history. She's a pivotal character in the life of the church. She's the first Christian on a whole continent. A founding member of the famous Philippian church. There's a whole book in the Bible named after this famous church that she's a founding member of. She is a saint among saints. So I've been meditating all week about this strange, incredible woman, Lydia. And it's been a really interesting process. I've been thinking a lot about Asian immigrants. This is API Heritage Month, Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and I've been doing a lot of things recently with the Asian Council in our annual conference. So I've been just thinking a lot about my own Asian identity recently. And there's just something very powerful to me about claiming Lydia as an Asian immigrant woman church leader. Now, I know the whole concept of, Asia is a social construct. The places that in Asia that Lydia and I are from are just about as far apart as you can get in Asia. Lydia is from modern-day Turkey, which is almost as far west as you can go in Asia. I'm from Taiwan, which is very far east in Asia. I know Asia it's just a construct, but there's something perhaps perversely unifying that the places we have immigrated to in the West have lumped us all into the same category. We have this in common, that we have all been othered by the same geographical construct, that we are all named Asian immigrants. Maybe there's a power in the idea that I am an Asian immigrant woman Christian leader, and I claim Lydia as my ancestor. If Lydia belonged in this church, so do I. If Lydia was trusted by the leadership of Paul and Silas, then the church can trust my leadership. If Lydia could transform and change the church, then so can I. If Lydia can bring her whole immigrant self and family, her bending of all the rules of patriarchy and family, her Asian art and her parents' cooking and her grandparents' spirituality and her children's global reality into this institution, challenging every cultural norm that is not of the gospel, if Lydia can do that, then so can I. So I claim Lydia. She is my spiritual ancestor. I draw upon her strength, her identity, her strangeness, her bold assumption that she belongs in the church, that her name and her culture should be remembered in the church, spoken by every reader of the New Testament. And I want to build communities that invite others to bring their whole selves, especially their marginalized parts, their non-normative parts, into relationship with God and others. It's interesting that Paul and his friends went to Philippi because they saw a vision of a Macedonian man asking them to come. Did you notice that? They came because they saw an image of a European man. Now, many of us come to church with ideas of what it looks like when God shows up, of the kinds of people that could speak words of divine wisdom. We have these images, these kind of stereotypes of God, stereotypes of church leadership. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say to me, "Oh, I didn't know they ordained women." Or when I was a young adult, "Oh, I didn't know they ordained teenagers." And sometimes those words really sting, It's like someone's telling me that because I'm a woman, they cannot believe that God could work through me, that I could be a leader and a representative of the church. And I get that. I remember when I was working as a chaplain at Yale New Haven Hospital down the street, I was like 24 years old. And I would walk into the room of somebody whose parent is dying. And I know that they were expecting an older man priest to come and pray with and comfort their family. And in comes this little petite young Asian American woman in a collar. That's hard. That family's so vulnerable in that moment, and it's maybe not the best time to be like, surprise, young women can be ministers too. That's hard. But it's all the more reason to make sure that people see different images of leadership before a moment like that, right? And you know, we all come to these communities with our own preconceptions, our prejudices, all the things that we were taught about what divinity and leadership looks like. And that's natural and that's real for all of us. Nothing to be ashamed about. We all have some version of the Macedonian man, you know, the European guy that we're expecting to find in certain situations. It's just the reality. But the real test is when we really start searching for God, for humans to be in community with. And that man doesn't show up, but perhaps an Asian immigrant woman shows up instead. You know, what do we do with that? Do we walk away and keep looking for the Macedonian man? Or do we change the world together with unexpected, unorthodox, uncommon people? Remembering that that's how God works in this world. I'm here to build communities that refuse to miss what God is doing in this world because of the limits of our imagination. Because we all start our lives imagining God as one thing, and I am telling you, God is inevitably going to show up as something else. And our lives and our Christian legacy and our participation in the divine life will be defined by what we do in those moments when God shows up as the unexpected. So are we going to sit with the strange prayer group of women on the margins of the city? Are we going to baptize the immigrant who bends every gender norm? Are we going to allow her to lead, to serve, to change the future with us? You know, I thank God for Paul and his friends who made room for someone like Lydia, who made room to do something new with someone new. And I want to build communities that do the same. Anybody with me? First in Summerfield, we ready? All right. May it be so. May it be so. As we think about how we are being led by God in unexpected ways, I'm going to invite Kimmy and Bob to lead us in singing You Leadeth Me, O Blessed Thought, and those who are in the sanctuary, you may rise as you are able.
You
as a community that brings our whole selves into this space, that welcomes our whole lives and the worlds that we inhabit. We take a moment each week just to offer our victories, our disappointments, our struggles to God through this community by allowing anybody who is present with us to name those. And we invite you, after naming it, to say, if you remember, it's okay if you don't, Lord, in your mercy, and we'll all respond, hear our prayer. And we'll start.
And now let's all join together in praying the prayer that Jesus taught. Our God who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. We continue our prayers with prayers of care for each other during this pandemic, and part of that is an action that we do each week, which is for those in the sanctuary to take our blue cards and write our contact information on them, just in case there's a COVID case in our community that we need to let you know about. And then at the end of the service is the little brown offering box at the back of the church that you can put your card in. You can also put offerings in the little brown offering box. At this time, we also are dedicating our offerings to God, those that are given by energy and time and spirit and love and sorting through financial records and all this, as well as financial gifts that are given to this community, which you can give in the little offering box online at fsumc.org or by mail. At this time, we are going to have a choir sing during our offertory as we collect gifts and gifts of contact cards. You may be seated. Just a few announcements from the church. One is that you too can join the pickup choir. I just picked it up today. We just meet a little early before church, like 9:15, 9:30. So come and we'll figure out what to sing then, and it's just really simple and easy. So we welcome anybody to join us. A few other things. Tomorrow we have a women's forum meeting. So anybody who identifies as a woman is welcome to join us on Zoom, the same Zoom as this, tomorrow night at 7 p.m. On Thursday night, those who have been a part of parish council will have a parish council meeting at 7 o'clock with a Zoom that I will send you. So if you haven't been receiving those emails, let me know. That's a way to get involved with a few other Methodist, the 8 Methodist churches that are local to this area. On May 30th, there is going to be a memorial service for Reverend George Engelhardt, who is a former district superintendent of this area and probably was known to many of our elders in this church and was really my first district superintendent here in Connecticut. He was also a very staunch fighter for social justice and promoter of the Methodist Federation for Social Action. Reverend George Engelhardt will have a service on May 30th, 2 p.m. at Cheshire UMC, and it will also be live streamed. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that who may want to attend. And finally, on June 5th, today is the graduation for Yale, but on June 5th, we're going to celebrate our high school graduates who graduate a little later than the universities. And we're going to be giving away a scholarship from the Clark Scholarship Fund. And we want to invite any of you to give to that fund at this time. This is a great time as we're celebrating our students and just wanting to honor them and send them off with as much goodwill as possible. For us to be thinking about doing that financially for those who are going off to very expensive college educations. So we invite you to give to the scholarship, to the Clark Scholarship Fund in these coming weeks as we prepare to celebrate our high school graduates. And you can do that by any of the means that you usually give, but just putting in the note Scholarship Fund. So we can't wait to celebrate again. So many celebrations. It's good stuff. All right. Well, I think that's all for church announcements. And now let's go ahead and sing together one of our church's favorite songs, Guide My Feet, and thinking about this as God's surprising guidance, because you know that guidance often leads us to uncommon, unorthodox places. You may rise as you are able in the sanctuary.
Guide my feet
regularly see outside, those coming from the baccalaureate service who are walking with their feet away from these major transitions in life. We give God thanks for all of those who are graduating and just pray that God will guide your feet. And for all of us, praying for God to guide our feet is a radical prayer, because we are going to be guided to unexpected places, to unorthodox people. And we are going to be guided to be those unexpected and unorthodox people in this world. So go out knowing that your spiritual ancestors walk before you, and that your spiritual descendants walk behind you, and that you are walking with God. And there will be many surprises, but there will also be salvation and beauty and glory. Amen.
Hi, I'm Reverend Vicki Flippin, pastor at First and Summerfield United Methodist Church in New Haven, Connecticut, and we're so glad to have had you in worship today. We would love to stay in touch with you, to know who you are, and to let you know what we're doing in our community during this time. So we invite you to send an email to fsumcworship@gmail.com, and we can't wait to hear from you. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe, be blessed, and let's continue to participate in all that God is doing in the world. Bye.